First, we have Lieutenant Colonel Edward C. Croot. He's the commander of the U.S. Army Mid-Atlantic Recruiting Battalion, and he'll discuss essential characteristics of successful people, along with the many resources and experiences the U.S. Army has to offer. Lieutenant.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I just streamed up the Parkway here from Egg Harbor Township in South New Jersey, where I just spoke to a bunch of principals and superintendents, generally the same message. But I really want to thank you for having me here today. As he said, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Ed Croot, and I'm a Special Forces officer. I've been on active duty for 21 years. I grew up right over here in West Orange on Eagle Rock Avenue until I was 7, and my parents moved us out to Morris County. I went to the University of Pittsburgh pursuing a business and psychology degree. And after my sophomore year, my parents called and said, "Your sister just got into Duke. That's $28,000 a year. Pitt is $9,000. You're gonna have to help us." So that led me to find the Army Reserves, and eventually I fell in love with the Army, and here I am 21 years later. But you may wonder why I'm here today, and I think that the gentlemen that sponsored this have heard me talk about what I'm going to talk about today and said, wow, we got to get that message out. So what I'd like to do first is, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit taller than the mic. What I'd like to do is describe for you 3 Generation Z young men and women. And I didn't realize there were Generation Z at the time, but I'd like to describe 3 different career paths for you that I've experienced. Now, I was in Hawaii with my family, where we lived for 4 years at Special Operations Command Pacific, when I got a letter and I opened it, and it said, "Hey, you're coming back to New Jersey to be the Army's recruiting battalion commander." And I thought they had the wrong person. I'm like, I've been fighting ISIS here over social media for the last 3 years. What are you talking about? No, it's you. It's your orders. Head back to New Jersey. I didn't understand why. After I describe these 3 people, I'll then tell you why, and I think it makes all the sense in the world. First person I'd like to describe is Carolyn Bronson, Sergeant, 22 years old. So in 2003, I led a counterterrorism team in Dhaka, Bangladesh. I was in a business suit every day, along with the other 12 people on my counterterrorism team. One March afternoon in 2013, I was called into an intelligence meeting in the embassy, where the station chief, USAID, the ambassador, the deputy ambassador, the FBI LNO, all said, "Hey, listen, we just had a murder downtown, a murder of a blogger. And we think it's significant because that blogger has a moderate voice in the community, and that's important." So I had no idea what a blogger was. Really didn't pay attention to the message until Carolyn, 22 years old, my intelligence sergeant, starts hitting my leg. "Sir, you need to take this case." I was like, "Okay." Raise my hand, the ambassador gives it to me, and away we go. We get back down, I'm like, "Carolyn, are you sure?" She's like, "Sir, if there are terrorists talking right now, they're talking on social media if they're under 30. Trust me." I was like, "Okay." 2 weeks later, Carolyn came back, hair everywhere, bags under her eyes. She was exhausted. And she's like, "Sir, I got something." This right here is Ansar Bangla Team's Facebook page. And on the left, it's in English, and on the right, it's in Bangla. And they're describing right here how to take down the police checkpoint to get at the U.S. Embassy, the British High Commission, the Canadian Consulate here within the diplomatic zone. I was like, okay. She said, and also here, this is them glorifying Ambassador Stevens, who was killed in Benghazi. And number 3, down here, this one link is Inspire Magazine. And if you don't go look this up, somebody will come see you. But Inspire Magazine is Al-Qaeda's periodical. And that's where the Boston bombers learned how to build the pressure cooker bomb that they used during the Boston Marathon. So I said, "Wow, Carolyn, great job. I've not only learned what a blogger is, and now I see exactly what you're talking about. So let's run over to the station chief." We presented the information. He said, "Great job. Now let's go back and keep watching that site. We'll pass this over to the FBI." So we did. About a month later, Carolyn came in, hair further away from her head, bags further below her eyes, exhausted. But she's like, "Sir, we got something." I'm like, "Okay, what is it?" She said, we think this guy right here, Nafis, we think that he is a sleeper agent for Ansar Bangla Team in the United States. I was like, "Okay, where is he at?" She said, "He's on Southern Missouri State University's campus." I was like, "Holy cow." So we passed that off to the FBI, and on 28 October 2013, they arrested Nafis for aspiring to bomb the federal building in New York City. So good job, Carolyn Bronson. Now, Carolyn, after this assignment, she did 4 years in the Army. She's now a junior at University of Southern California. I'll be going to her wedding next summer. So I went back to Hawaii now after 13 months in the embassy, and I went back to the command, and they said, "Amazing job, Colonel Croot. You're the man. We need you to be in charge of that type of operation in 36 countries in the Asia Pacific. So head up to the NSA and start talking to them up there about this social media stuff you're doing. So let me remind everybody, I didn't even know what a blogger was. It was not me that did this, it was Carolyn. Doesn't matter, get your butt up there. Okay, so up I go, and I go into a huge room. One side of the room, there's about 50 young men and women doing exactly what I just described. But on the other side of the room was a group that were doing what we'll call cybersecurity. And I'm being taped today, and I certainly don't want to say too much about what they did. But if you know what cybersecurity is, they're counter hacking and hacking, which goes on and really is securing our country. In fact, I think they were protecting the banks in Hawaii at the time. So I saw this one young man there that was sweating, and I said, I got to talk to that kid. He had his blouse on. It's air conditioning with all these computers around, but I'd like to talk to him. I'm just fascinated by what he's doing. So I eventually got to talk to him, and he explained to me that he was after his first month at MIT, he realized that he knew more about hacking and counter-hacking than any of his professors or instructors, and that he wanted to go gain tangible experience somewhere before he pursued this academically, because he felt like he had learned everything that they were trying to teach him online. So he went and he could have joined the Army or the Air Force. He went and joined the Army and did cybersecurity. And he's back at MIT. I think he's in his sophomore year now, pursuing the education piece and having it paid for by the Army. But that point that he felt like he knew more than anything else is what was incredibly profound to me. The third young lady I'd like to talk about is somebody that I met on my second week on the job here in the recruiting command. I'm back in New Jersey now at my parents' house in Long Valley, and my recruiters from Morristown, New Jersey said, hey, sir, you got to meet this young lady who's in the local reserve unit here and in Morristown, and she is a 68 Whiskey, which is a medic. So, okay. Nice to meet you. What's your name? I'm Sergeant X, and I am in charge of 9 soldiers in the reserve unit. And for those that don't know what the reserves are, it's 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks during the summer they do drill, so they're part-time. And she said, yeah, I'm in charge of the field hospital here in the unit. And I said, okay. Still not sure why I'm talking to you yet. She said, well, I think your recruiters wanted me to talk about how I'm number 3 in my medical class at Rutgers right now, in my 3rd year of my medical degree. I was like, that's why. Why don't you tell me about how you came to this point? So she said, I was 18 years old, and I was looking behind, and my parents were working really hard to send me, and then eventually my brother and my sister to college. So I wanted to try and help my parents out financially. But probably more important was I wanted to be a doctor, or so I thought I did. And I wanted to confirm or deny my passion to be a doctor by getting some experience. So I decided, I looked around and I said, you know what, I can hit my financial needs in the local Army Reserves, and I can start to hopefully build some experience. So she went to basic training, fell in love in the Army, much like I did. She then went on to AIT, Advanced Individual Training, where she got certified as a paramedic. And then she went off to her local reserve unit. So as she went pursuing her biology degree in Rutgers, 1 weekend a month, she would go drill with her reserve unit. And then during the summers, she would do a 2-week drill. And I said, okay, well, it looks like everything worked out the way you wanted. Here you are in medical school, having that paid for with grants and AMED and whatnot. And she said, no, sir, much, much more happened than I ever thought would. She said, my first summer on drill, I went to Tripler Army Hospital in Hawaii. And I worked for 2 weeks in the Army's emergency room in the Army hospital there. And then I went back to Rutgers and finished up my sophomore year. And the next summer, I went down to Walter Reed, where I did my 2-month drill down in Walter Reed, and I worked in the recovery room. And then the next summer was really boring. We just cleaned equipment here in New Jersey. But the next summer, I got to go for 3 weeks to Camp Bonsteel, Kosovo, on the base, and I ran the Army's hospital for 3 weeks there. So, sir, the reason why I'm so successful in medical school right now, I don't have any worries financially because it's being paid for, got that. But I have experience. I understand how the medical field works. I understand how the emergency room ties in with the recovery room, ties in with the pharmacy. I understand how they order equipment, how they maintain equipment. I understand how important it is to put the right doctor and the right nurse on the same shift, because if they don't get along on the night shift, it's going to be miserable for all the other 20 people on that floor that night. These are the intangibles of experience that made her completely comfortable as she was pursuing her academic pursuits. The other students around her, she said, were nervous. They didn't know what to expect the first time they went into their, into observe within the hospital or go into the emergency room, et cetera, and so on. She had the entire experience and context. So lucky again for me to have met her. When I put all these 3 young men and women in context, 22-year-old Carolyn, who's now at USC, the young man who was doing the cybersecurity that's now back in MIT, and then the young woman I'm talking about that's in Rutgers Medical School, I really started to understand why the Chief of Staff of the Army sent us back to our home states. Because we understand operationally all the different career fields there are, and we understand the importance of experience. So now that I'm in the recruiting command, we enlisted 505 more people last year understanding the importance of this. So that's going great for us, no worries. The thing that I would like to share with this audience next, that the folks that put this together asked me to, was what I have found for the 18 months that I've been here. So I've talked to about 15,000 high school students, about 12,000 college graduates, and about another 6,000 college students. I've talked to educators at every level, and I've talked to over 100 employers as I go to job fairs. And this is what I would like to share with you, which is a pretty solid pathway. It doesn't have to be in the military. I know you can accomplish the things I'm going to talk about in the military, but you need to do these things to be successful moving forward. So number one, I think we have high school students in the audience online. So what I would say to you is, as Generation Xers, actually, you know what? Let me do this first. Let me also articulate Generation Z for those of in the crowd that are a Generation Xer like myself, maybe some baby boomers or some millennials. Generation Z is very interesting right now. So they were born in and around 1997. They know what happened on 9/11, and they generally favorably look at their military in a positive light. That, hey, you were forward trying to fight terrorism for the right reasons. They remember 2008, 2009 Great Recession. So they stand a very good chance of knowing a parent, a teacher, their friend's parent, a coach who have lost their job or lost their home. That's 90,000 Americans that happened to. So they stand a good chance of seeing that. And so therefore they've developed what the sociologists say is they're not very entitled. Whereas Generation X, I expected my parents to send me to college. And if they went into debt doing it, that's okay. Generation Z right now isn't doing that. They're making intelligent decisions about where they want to go. They're determining what their passion is, and they're following that passion. But that passion may not be directly to college. The most famous person that's doing this right now is President Obama's daughter. She's doing what's called a gap year, if you haven't heard this. Or what they're saying is they have a passion, they want to follow it, they may or may not be able to afford the path to that passion through the right university yet, or they might not sure if that is the passion, so they want to gain some experience. And the final piece about the Generation Zers is they're hyper-enabled with information on the internet. At the touch of their hands, they are researching questions. They are sharing ideas with their peers. And what's fascinating is they're making incredibly mature decisions on moving forward. They're not willing to put their parents' retirement into jeopardy just to go to a certain university. They understand it's important, but it has to be paired with a passion because they don't want to chase money like my generation did. When I was in high school here at West Morris Central in New Jersey, the decision that people made to be a lawyer, to be a doctor, was about money. It wasn't about a passion. Generation Z, right now, these kids are making a different decision. They're following passion. They want to make a difference with what they choose to do. So with that in context, when I talk to high school, with young men and women in high school, I encourage them to research what your passion is. Have a passion and follow that. Number two, take your grades and your SATs and ACTs very seriously, because I know that you can't do those over after high school. When you're a freshman or a sophomore in college, there's no going back to retake the ACT and SAT. There's no going back and doing over your high school grades. So have a passion, pursue it by holding the leverage, by doing everything you can to keep all doors open. Now, for the college students, what I have found, and I probably won't mention the name of the college that I was at a month ago and had this conversation, but what's happening is 50% of the young men and women that are starting college right now in America are not finishing. 50%. And this is well documented. You can research this on your own. But when I went and talked to this university in Philadelphia, which happens to be $61,000 a year, they said, holy cow, you're exactly right. We're facing this right now. We are only returning 68% of our freshman to sophomore year. So we would love for you to come and talk this message with our students as a potential way to keep more in school. And that's, of course, with the Army Reserves. So that's what's kind of going on the college campuses. But let me talk about last, what is going on in the job market. Now, if you take nothing away from this, I'd ask people to write down, or those that are at home watching this view, write down this. Success in the new economy. That is about 8-minute video that if you YouTube, you can find it. It wasn't done by us. It was done by the community colleges of America. It's a phenomenal 8-minute video. and it describes something called gray collar. And when I saw this video about 6 months ago, it was exactly what I was finding at all the job fairs, talking with all the other employers. And so to put it into my words, this is what is happening to those young men and women trying to pursue their passions after college. They may or may not have been able to afford college. If they couldn't, they took out student loans. And those student loans are on national average upward of about $60,000. They also then find themselves paying about $300 or $400 a month in medical costs if their parents didn't have a good medical coverage to cover them out till they're 26. But they're not getting a job being able to follow their passion, because recruiters are looking for 4 things now. When I graduated from Pitt in 1995 with my college degree, I would get that job. Now you need 4 things. Number 1 is experience. Any worldly experience whatsoever. Picture an employer, say at Verizon or Comcast or Toys R Us, companies I've worked closely with here in New Jersey over the last year. They're looking at 4 young men and women. And the first question is, do any of them have any experience? Have they taken the time to do an internship or an externship? Have they done anything to try and balance out their academic pursuit with some practical experience? Because they understand that most kids, Generation Z, as well as millennials up till now, went through a No Child Left Behind academic system, which trained them academically to pass a test, not necessarily work with other components to solve a problem. So what I mean by that is they're studying engineering, but they don't know how to work with the designer or the builder or the business person that's going to sell that idea, right? So they want to make sure that they have some kind of experience. For us, obviously, we can get experience in the Army Reserve. Number 2 is certifications. This was the last thing that I found out, and you need to understand the importance of this from the employers. When the employers are looking at 4 young men or women that are millennials who change their jobs 7 times before they're 30, and they're about to invest time and money into that employee, they want to know, they're going to get them certified. They want to know they're going to potentially stay in their organization. What are they? If you're doing anything with people's personal information or their social security number or their business account, so think human resources, think finance on the internet, you need to have some kind of a security clearance. Because the second that you're not careful with that person's social security number or their personal information, you may just have destroyed that person's life. And if that happens, they're coming after that company. If you're in logistics, let's say, and you don't understand the importance of handling hazardous materials, and you don't put the oil pan down as a truck driver coming into the warehouse delivering, you probably just bought that acre if you spilled oil from the EPA for about $500,000 from your company. If you're doing engineering, any engineers in here by chance? Do you know what certifications are important for engineers? Project management? Lots of different alphabets for it. Do you know? You're shaking your head up and down. Yep, that's one of them. Project management certifications. They can cost upwards of $25,000, $30,000. So all these certifications, that's just to name 3. All your different career fields have certifications now. It's incredibly important that you have them. And if you have them in the job interview, well, then that's another reason for them to potentially skew toward you. And of course, for us within the Army, we certify to equal or greater 99.9% of the jobs within the United States. So certifications are incredibly important to employers. The third intangible here, I'll call the Army values, but I'll just call them intangibles. These are my words, but this is what the employers describe. They say they want to know now, of these 4 young men and women they're talking to, are they going to show up to work on time in the morning? Are they going to have the intestinal fortitude and the courage to stand next to me, the boss, in solving a complex problem that might face my company? Or better yet, do they stand a chance of taking a leadership role for my company and helping me solve that complex problem? Does that young man or woman have respect for the other sex? Do they have respect for other races and cultures? Or more importantly, will they stand up and do the right thing if they see someone being violated within their company and put a stop to it or bring notice to someone? These are the intangibles that are going around in the minds of the employers that are going to be conducting the interviews with these young men and women. It's not just about the degree anymore. Now, don't for a second think the degree is important. It is. We all want everyone to have a degree too, but it's not the only thing anymore. The times have changed. So what happens is the young men and women only have one of those four. And they go into the interview the first year after college, and they interview, and they interview, and they interview. And they don't end up getting the job in the academic field pursuit that they want to, their passion. So they have to take a gray-collar job. I know I'm being taped, so I can't say any names of any companies, but they're taking jobs at coffee shops and some retail stores, waitering, bartending. You'll see them around. And they have to work because they have to pay off their student loans, but they're not building those four that I just talked about, the experience, the certifications, the intangibles. They have the degree, but they can't pursue it. I talk to 10 criminal justice majors a week, 10 a week, and they can't get a job. They'll have a 3.8, but they can't get a job even as a dispatcher because it's competitive. We've outsourced so much, and the intangibles of what they're looking for become incredibly important to companies as they're downsizing. So the message for the group today, which hopefully coincides with the overall message, was, hey, have a passion, absolutely, and pursue that. But make sure you're doing everything you can all along the way, that career path, to build experience, get your certifications, and be able to enhance your resume to get the job that you want. Because I'll tell you, I've been in 37 countries around the world in my 21 years on active duty. I've generally seen it all. And in my opinion, this is still the greatest country in the world where you can pursue your dreams. There will be people that will try and get in your way. Don't worry about that. The money will run out or money will be challenging. People will try and get in your way, maybe advise you against it. But have a pursuit, have a dream, and continue to follow that. So with that, I think I'm good on time. I'd offer up if there's any questions here before I step down. Yeah, ma'am? Yeah, I think she said, what are the four? This is like my doctrine. Go ahead. Ask her, but I'm pretty sure she said, what are the four?
I got the first one, but I lost the fourth.
The fourth?
Yes.
College degree.
Okay.
Now remember, literally 20 years ago, it was just the college degree. You'd be good. Now you really need to enhance your resume with the other three.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, it looks like maybe it. No? All right, well, hey, we'll be over here if anybody has any questions for us in the Army. And other than that, we really appreciate your time, and thanks for having us today. Oh.